Okay, let's try and unpack this.
Yeah.
Imagine your company just basically threw away $1 million. Sounds pretty wild, right?
$1 million. Wow.
Yeah. Well, there was this analysis. It suggested Atlantic Media was spending something in that ballpark annually just on dealing with internal emails.
Just email. That's staggering.
Isn't it? Think about the constant switching, context switching, the mental energy just to re-engage. It really makes you think, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
If you're trying to learn something new or be really effective, how do you possibly cut through all that noise, that constant digital chatter, and focus on what actually moves the needle?
Yeah, and that $1 million thing is not just the cash, right? It's the lost opportunity. How many good ideas just fizzled out?
Exactly.
How many tough problems didn't get solved because people's brains were just fragmented all the time? It really throws this huge modern challenge into sharp relief. The battle for our attention.
Yeah, totally. And that's the battleground we're diving into today.
Yeah.
We're really digging into this idea of deep work, which Cal Newport explores so well in his book.
Yeah. The ability to focus.
Yeah, the ability to focus without distraction on stuff that really takes brain power. Cognitive demand, he calls it. Sounds simple maybe, but
But it's incredibly hard now.
in our world, yeah, it's like a superpower.
And it's a superpower that's getting more and more valuable. I mean, look at the economy. Brynjolfsson and McAfee talked about this huge restructuring happening because of AI and automation.
Right.
And they argued the people who are going to thrive are, well, basically three groups. Those who can work really well with smart machines, the absolute top performers, the superstars in their field, and, well, people with capital.
Okay, and here's where it clicks.
Yeah.
Learning this deep work skill, it puts you right in the running for those first two groups.
Exactly.
Like, think about Nate Silver. How did he become the guy for election forecasting?
His analysis was just deeper.
Right. He could dive deep into complex data, build these intricate models. You don't get that kind of insight by, scrolling through headlines. It takes serious, sustained focus. Sertalanges had that great quote about using your mind like a lens, right? Focusing the light.
That's a great image. Well, which leads to the big question. If deep work is so darn valuable, why is it so rare?
Yeah, it's a paradox.
Because you look around and so many trends in business seem designed to prevent deep work.
Like open offices.
Open offices, exactly. The constant connectivity, the expectation to be always on, even the pressure for professionals to have this big social media presence, it all just chips away at your ability to concentrate.
It's true. You see these giant, flashy open plan HQs, and the pitch is always collaboration, but then everyone's wearing noise-canceling headphones, trying to get some work done.
Right.
Or you think about someone like Jack Dorsey, obviously brilliant, but also known for fostering that kind of interrupt-driven environment. Maybe the intention is good, boosting serendipity or whatever, but the side effect.
The side effect is death to deep work. And it's tough to fight back because the cost of all this distraction isn't obvious on a spreadsheet. Newport calls it the metric black hole. That Atlantic Media email cost was a rare glimpse, but how do you measure lost creativity? Or mistakes made because someone was rushed and distracted?
Yeah, you can't really quantify it easily.
Plus, you have this whole phenomenon of busyness as a proxy for productivity.
Yeah, looking busy.
Exactly. When it's hard to point to the actual value you're creating, like in knowledge work, it's easier to just look busy, answer emails fast, jump into meetings, even if that stuff isn't your real work.
It makes me think of Richard Feynman.
Yeah.
He deliberately cultivated this reputation for being a bit irresponsible, he called it.
Just to protect his thinking time.
Yeah. He knew the real breakthroughs needed that solid, uninterrupted time. And then there's the whole, Newport calls it the cult of the internet. These tools are just everywhere. They're so woven into everything we do that choosing not to use them, choosing to disconnect and focus, feels almost weird. Or radical.
Like Jonathan Franzen getting flack for suggesting maybe Twitter wasn't the best place to write a novel.
Exactly. Or seeing like us on Facebook on the side of a refrigerated truck.
Yeah.
It's this constant background hum and demanding attention, making deep focus feel like you're swimming against the current.
And there's a neurological cost, too. Our brains adapt. Winifred Gallagher wrote about this after her cancer diagnosis, realizing how much power she had just by choosing where to focus her attention, on the good stuff.
Right.
But the flip side is, if your mind is constantly flitting between shallow things, idle, it tends to latch onto worries, trivial stuff. It makes work feel stressful and meaningless.
Whereas deep work, that's where you find that flow state that Csikszentmihalyi talked about.
Precisely. That feeling of being totally absorbed, challenged, using your skills, time just disappears.
Yeah, you lose track of time. It's incredibly satisfying. Deep work really unlocks that.
And there's even a philosophical angle. Thinkers like Dreyfus and Kelly argued that mastering a craft, really dedicating yourself to something complex, gives you this profound sense of meaning. It's not just about you, it's about the work itself.
So deep work is kind of like the intellectual version of craftsmanship.
You could say that. It taps into something deep about human satisfaction.
Okay, so we get it. Deep work is valuable. Deep work rare. So
Yeah.
how do we actually do it? Let's get practical. Newport's rule number 1, work deeply. And he's clear, you need more than just good intentions. You need a system, a philosophy.
Right. Just trying to squeeze it in here and there, that doesn't work. He lays out 4 main approaches, 4 philosophies.
Okay.
First up is the monastic philosophy. This is pretty hardcore. You basically try to eliminate or radically minimize all the shallow stuff, dedicate yourself almost entirely to the deep work.
Like a hermit novelist?
Kind of. Think Neil Stephenson, maybe.
Oh.
Someone whose work requires immense focus and who seems to structure their life around protecting that focus. You need a really clear, high-impact goal for this to make sense.
Right, makes sense. What's next?
Then there's the bimodal philosophy. This is more about alternating. You have intense, focused periods, almost monastic, and then you have periods where you're more open, accessible, dealing with the shallower stuff.
Like dedicated chunks of time.
Exactly. Carl Jung retreating to his tower to write, that's a classic example. Or Adam Grant, the Wharton professor, who apparently blocks off entire semesters just for research and writing, and is more available the rest of the time.
Interesting. Sort of cycles.
Yep. Then you've got the rhythmic philosophy. This one's maybe more accessible for many people. It's about building a regular habit, a rhythm.
Like same time every day?
Yeah, maybe you block out 90 minutes every single morning, no matter what, for deep work. It becomes automatic, part of your routine, like brushing your teeth. You don't debate it, you just do it.
I could see that working. Less decision fatigue.
For sure. And finally, the journalistic philosophy. This one requires serious mental discipline. It's the ability to switch into deep work mode almost instantly, whenever you have a pocket of free time. Like a journalist on deadline who can just dive in and focus intensely for 20 minutes between interviews.
Walter Isaacson is his example, right? Writing biographies on planes and stuff.
That's the one. It takes practice to shift gears that quickly and effectively.
So 4 different styles. Monastic, bimodal, rhythmic, journalistic.
And the crucial point is, there's no single best one. It depends entirely on you, your job, your life circumstances. The goal is to pick one or adapt one that lets you consistently integrate deep work. Find what's sustainable for you.
Right. Find your own rhythm or structure. Okay, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on then. Rule number 2. Embrace boredom.
Uh-oh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sounds like the opposite of what we usually want, right?
Totally. In our world, boredom feels like something to be avoided at all costs.
But Newport's argument is that your ability to concentrate isn't just about willpower in the moment.
Oh.
It's a skill, like a muscle, and it needs training.
Okay. How does boredom train it?
Well, think about what happens when we're constantly seeking stimulation. Checking our phones every 2 minutes, clicking on every notification. Research, like Clifford Nass's work at Stanford, showed that chronic multitasking actually changes your brain.
Changes it how?
It makes it harder to filter out irrelevant information, harder to sustain focus even when you want to. Your brain gets wired for distraction, essentially. It craves the novelty.
Wow. Okay, so we need to, detox our brains.
In a way, yes. One key strategy is quarantining deep work from shallow work. Create clear boundaries. Schedule your deep work blocks, obviously, but also, and this is key, schedule your shallow work blocks.
Schedule time for email and social media.
Exactly. Define specific times when you'll check those things. And outside those blocks, resist. Put the phone away. Don't just reflexively grab it the second you feel a flicker of boredom.
So you're strengthening that attention muscle by not giving in to the urge for distraction.
Precisely. Every time you resist that quick check, you're doing a little rep for your focus muscle. You're teaching your brain it's okay to just think without constant external input.
Okay, that makes sense. It's about rebuilding tolerance for less stimulation.
Right. Another technique he suggests is productive meditation. This isn't about clearing your mind, quite the opposite.
Okay.
It's about using periods when you're physically occupied but mentally free, like
Yeah.
walking, jogging, showering, driving, to focus intensely on a single, well-defined professional problem.
Like mulling something over while walking the dog.
Yeah.
I do that sometimes.
Yeah. But the key is structure. You don't just let your mind wander vaguely. You identify the specific problem, review the variables, figure out the very next step or question, and keep bringing your focus back to that question whenever it drifts. Avoid just looping over what you already know.
So actively working the problem in your head, step by step during those downtimes.
Exactly. It trains focused thought even when you're not at your desk. And then there's a really interesting, maybe surprising one. Memorizing a deck of cards.
Memorizing cards. How does that help with work focus?
It sounds unrelated, but think about what it takes. Memory athletes use techniques like building a memory palace, associating vivid images with each card and placing them mentally in a familiar location.
Right, I've heard of that.
Doing that requires intense concentration, visualization, and holding information in your mind. It's like a high-intensity workout for your attention and working memory. Newport argues, and memory experts agree, that strengthening these underlying cognitive skills translates to better focus in other areas too.
Like cognitive cross-training.
Kind of, yeah. It builds the fundamental capacity to direct and sustain your focus.
Fascinating. Okay, mental workouts. Embrace boredom. Got it.
Yeah.
Rule number 3. This is the big one for many people. Quit social media.
Audible sigh. Yeah, this often gets the strongest reaction, but the logic follows directly from the previous points.
Because it fragments attention.
Massively. These tools are, in many ways, designed to capture and hold your attention in short bursts. We're seeing more and more people recognizing this and experimenting with breaks, like Baratan Thurston did.
So Newport's take isn't just social media bad. It's more nuanced.
It is. He proposes what he calls the craftsman approach to tool selection. This is really important.
Okay, craftsman approach. What's that?
It contrasts with the typical any benefit approach. Most of us use the any benefit approach.
Mm-hmm.
If we can imagine any possible benefit from using a tool like Twitter or Facebook, we feel compelled to use it.
Yeah, FOMO, fear of missing out. What if I missed that connection or opportunity?
Exactly. The craftsman approach flips that. It says, start with your core goals. What are the most important things you're trying to achieve professionally and personally? Define those clearly.
Okay.
Then identify the, say, 2 or 3 key activities that produce the most value towards those goals.
The high leverage stuff.
Right. Then you look at a tool like social media and ask, does using this tool provide a substantial positive impact on those specific key activities? And importantly, are the negative impacts like fractured attention worth those benefits?
So it's a much higher bar for adopting a tool. It has to really serve your main goals significantly, not just offer some vague potential benefit.
Precisely. He uses the example of a farmer deciding whether a new piece of equipment truly supports his core goal of soil health, not just if it makes one task slightly easier. Or Michael Lewis, the writer, his core activity is writing great books. Does spending hours on Twitter substantially improve that core activity, or does it mostly detract from it?
Right. Focus on what really matters.
It ties into the law of the vital few, the 80-20 principle. Most of your results likely come from a small percentage of your activities.
So focus your time and tools on that 20%.
And be ruthless about cutting out the rest, even if they offer some small value, because your time and attention are zero-sum. Every minute spent on low-impact, shallow stuff is a minute not spent on high-impact, deep work.
Okay, that's a compelling argument. But quitting cold turkey seems hard.
So he suggests a trial separation first, the 30-day social media packing party.
Packing party. Like for moving house?
Kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Inspired by the minimalists, you take a full 30-day break from all optional network tools. Cold turkey.
Whoa.
The point isn't necessarily to quit forever after 30 days. It's to break the addiction, clear your head, and then, after the month, ask yourself 2 questions about each service. 1, would the last 30 days have been notably better if I'd been able to use this? And 2, did people care that I wasn't using it?
So you gain real perspective on its actual value or lack thereof in your life.
Exactly. Often people find the benefits were smaller and the downsides, like distraction, were bigger than they realized. It makes it easier to be intentional about whether and how you reintroduce these tools.
It's about conscious choice over habit.
Right. And shifting your leisure time, too, towards things that require focus and engagement, like Arnold Bennett argued for truly living, rather than just passively consuming shallow entertainment.
Okay, that makes sense. It's a whole mindset shift. All right, final rule. Rule number 4, drain the shallows.
Yes. So we've talked about protecting deep work time, training focus, being selective about tools. Now it's about actively reducing the amount of shallow work that fills up our days.
Because some shallow work is unavoidable, right? Emails, admin.
Absolutely. The goal isn't zero shallow work. That's unrealistic for most jobs. It's about taming it, minimizing its footprint so it doesn't drown out the deep work.
How do we do that?
Well, look at companies like 37 Signals, now Basecamp. They famously experimented with 4-day work weeks or giving employees a whole month off from regular duties.
That they found.
They found that a lot of the supposedly essential meetings, reports, back and forth communication just wasn't as critical as everyone assumed. Productivity often increased when the shallow stuff was compressed or removed.
Interesting. So less can be more.
Often, yes. So one powerful strategy Newport advocates is scheduling every minute of your workday.
Every minute. That sounds intense and rigid.
It sounds rigid, but he argues it's actually liberating. The point isn't to stick to the schedule perfectly like a robot. Things will change. The point is to have a plan for every minute.
Why? What does that achieve?
It forces you to confront how much time you actually have and make conscious decisions about how to use it. We tend to drastically underestimate time spent on unproductive things. This kind of detailed scheduling reveals those time sinks, the aimless web browsing, the email checking spirals.
It makes the trade-offs explicit. If I schedule deep work here, I can't also schedule checking Twitter.
Exactly. You create blocks for deep work, blocks for shallow tasks like email, blocks for lunch, even blocks for unexpected things that pop up. If something overruns or an emergency happens, you quickly reschedule the rest of your day. It gives you control.
Okay, I can see the logic. It forces intentionality.
Another useful tool is thinking about your deep work ratio. Ask yourself, for any given task you do, how long would it take to train a smart, recent college graduate with no specialized training to do this task?
Okay. If the answer is a few weeks, it's
Probably pretty shallow. If it takes months or years of specialized training, it's likely deeper work that leverages your unique skills. The goal is to constantly ask, how can I increase the proportion of my time spent on the hard-to-train, high-value stuff?
right. Delegate or minimize the easily trainable tasks.
Exactly. Then there's fixed schedule productivity. This is powerful.
What's that involve?
You set a firm quitting time, say 5:30 p.m., and you commit to not working past that time on a regular basis.
Okay. But how do you get everything done?
That's the point. The constraint forces you to work backward. You ask, given that I must finish by 5:30, what strategies do I need to adopt during the day to make that possible? How can I be more focused, more efficient, ruthless about minimizing shallow tasks? It creates positive pressure.
Instead of just letting work expand to fill all available time.
Precisely. It combats Parkinson's law. And finally, a big part of draining the shallows is becoming harder to reach, especially with email.
Ooh, controversial again. How?
Several tactics. Maybe use sender filters, automatically sorting emails so you only see messages from key people immediately. Maybe tell people up front about your email policy. I check email twice a day, for example.
Setting expectations.
Yes. Also, critically, do more work when you send or reply to an email. Anticipate the next question, provide all necessary info, suggest concrete next steps. The goal is to reduce the number of back-and-forth exchanges needed to resolve something.
Make each email count more, basically.
Right, and honestly, sometimes the best strategy is simply not responding.
Ignore emails.
If an email is ambiguous, irrelevant, or doesn't clearly benefit you or the sender relative to the effort required, Newport argues it's often okay to just let it go unanswered. It feels uncomfortable at first, but it saves immense amounts of time dealing with low-value communication.
Wow. That takes some courage.
It does, but it's about protecting your most valuable resource.
Yeah.
Focused attention.
Okay, so working deeply, embracing boredom, quitting or limiting social media, draining the shallows. It's a comprehensive approach.
It really is, and it's not an overnight fix.
No, definitely not. I mean, thinking back on my own experience, like during my postdoc and starting out as a professor, I really had to consciously build those deep work muscles. I had set artificial deadlines, block off library time with no internet. It took deliberate practice, consistent effort over time.
That's a great point. It's not about innate talent. It's about adopting these kinds of strategies, making them habits. It's a skill you cultivate.
So wrapping this all up, the big takeaway from our deep dive today is that deep work, that focused, undistracted concentration on hard stuff, isn't just a nice-to-have productivity tip.
No, it's becoming fundamental. It's incredibly valuable, increasingly rare, and absolutely key if you want to learn fast, produce high-quality work, and really thrive in today's economy. And feel more fulfilled, frankly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the really hopeful part is that it can be cultivated. It's not some magic ability.
Right. By being intentional, by using these strategies to manage your time, your attention, your relationship with distraction, you can build this capacity yourself.
So, the call of action for you, listening right now, don't try to do everything at once. Pick one thing, maybe two.
Yeah, what resonated? Was it scheduling your day, trying productive meditation, the 30-day social media break?
Pick something small, experiment with it, see how it feels, and maybe take 5 minutes today to really think about your main goals.
Yeah.
What are those vital few activities that truly drive them?
And maybe a final thought to leave you with. In this world that is constantly, relentlessly demanding your attention, what could you actually achieve? What could you create or learn or solve if you consistently carved out and protected time for your deepest, most focused work? What might you discover about your own capabilities?
Something to think about. Thanks for diving deep with us today. We hope you'll take these ideas and see how you can harness the power of focus in your own life.